Yokoso owashitare, and welcome back to part 3 of this 3-part series about the story of the man who found the hidden village. And this is where all the cool stuff happens, so if you haven't seen videos 1 and 2, please go check them out or you won't actually understand what's going on here. And just real quick, if you like Japanese history, storytelling, culture, those kinds of things, please don't forget to like the video. Please subscribe to the channel so that way you can be notified when new videos come up, because this is the final video that we're going to do on this story, but we have plenty more stories where that came from. And with all of that out of the way, let's continue where we left off, which was this man who had come to this hidden village and was formerly a priest, but because of certain circumstances that we go over in the previous videos, ends up not being a priest anymore. And he learns that he is to be sacrificed to a giant monkey god that these hidden villagers worship, and they sacrifice to it every year. And because he is an outsider who happened upon this place, although he was taken care of and given free food and lodging, nice clothing, and a beautiful wife, this was all simply to keep him at ease so they could bring him and sacrifice him to this monkey god. Now he learned this truth, but his hosts, the other villagers, did not know that he knew the truth, and he was at this point playing along, and he had decided that he was going to do something about it. And we had left off where this man had actually gone with his father-in-law and some of the other villagers out to the place of the festival, because there was a big festival that was going to be held, and to where he was going to be sacrificed. And so, at length, they arrived at the place of sacrifice. It was deep in the mountains, and the first thing that caught the man's eye was a huge shrine. It was surrounded by a wide and sturdy fence, on the inside of which was a line of dinner trays that had been set up. And the party, because again this man had been brought by a party of many people of the village, all went inside this fence and everyone found a seat at one of the trays. The man, however, was guided to a seat that stood above the rest. He sat down, was given food, and ate while all the other participants held a celebration where they ate, drank, danced, and just had a grand old time. It wasn't long before the fun was over, however, and once everyone had finished their celebrating, they called the man down from his seat, stripped him of his clothes, but as you will see, I don't think they stripped him of all of them, undid the tie in his hair, and then instructing him to not move a muscle or say a word, they placed him on top of an altar, had him lie down, and then stuck a sakaki branch at each of the altar's 4 corners. Then they decorated this altar with various objects considered sacred in Shinto, ritualistically cleared the path from the altar to the fence, lined up in front of the door leading outside the shrine grounds, and then, taking one last look to make sure everything was satisfactory, one by one, everyone left the shrine grounds and returned home. All except the man, who was still lying there on the altar. It was at this point, the man very carefully pulled out the sword that he had hidden on the inside of his hakama. Hakama being really baggy pleated pants that the Japanese wore a long time ago. So now, being armed, the man waited. It was quiet for what seemed like ages. But finally, the man heard a noise. The sound of the door to the main shrine slowly creaking open. And when he spun around to see, it seemed to be moving all on its own. The man then felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. As if in response, however, the doors to all the other smaller shrine buildings also began opening, one by one. Then, from somewhere out of the shadows off to the side of the main shrine, out strode a huge monkey, about the size of a man, that turned towards the main shrine and let out a shriek. At this, the blinds on the inside of the shrine were lifted by some unseen force, and another giant monkey, slightly larger than the first, with fangs that gleamed as if coated in silver and standing with more imposing dignity, stepped forward and out of the main shrine. This one was clearly the leader, the so-called god, while the first monkey that appeared was probably its attendant, from what we can tell. But when the man saw this, he was actually relieved, because these were clearly just monkeys, albeit big monkeys and certainly dangerous, but it was clear that they weren't actually gods or some kind of oni or spirit or something like that. A spirit would have been a problem, but a monkey, well, a monkey can bleed. The next thing the man saw was other monkeys gradually stepping out from inside the other shrine buildings that were scattered all around the shrine grounds. And they slowly made their way over to where these other two monkeys were, specifically going up next to the attendant monkey, and they all lined up in front of both of them. And once they were all present and accounted for, the attendant monkey also took up a position just off to the side, at which the leader monkey gave another shriek, and then the attendant monkey began making its way over to the altar. This was when the man first noticed a giant knife and a pair of cooking chopsticks that had been laid on the floor near this altar that he was laying on. But just as the attendant monkey took up the knife and turned toward the man to carve him up, the man grabbed his sword, sprang off of the altar, and ignoring the attendant monkey that was still holding the knife and moving toward him, he sprinted at the main monkey, the supposed god. This seemed to completely catch the god monkey by surprise, as it screamed, stumbled backwards, and fell on its back. But before it could get back up, the man closed the gap, pinned the monkey down with one foot, but without pointing the sword at the monkey, roared at it defiantly. "Are you the god?" The monkey only responded by putting its hands together in supplication, begging to be let go, while his friends all scattered hither and thither, climbing the nearby trees and screeching at the man, as monkeys do. It was here that the man noticed some vines growing on the shrine, and cutting a length of them down, he tied the monkey's hands together, then tied the monkey to a pillar, and pointing his sword at the monkey's gut, he jeered, "Turns out, you're just a monkey, aren't you? All these years you've lied, claiming you were a god, devouring innocent people. What a horrible, horrible thing. Call your children over here. If you refuse, I'll gut you here and now. If you really are a god, I can't imagine a sword will do anything. Should we give it a try and see what happens?" Thus saying, the man then motioned with his sword, like he was going to dig the blade in like a nail. The monkey screamed and pushed its hands together even harder, pleading even more desperately, to which the man responded with, "Well then, I suggest you call your children over, now." At this, the god monkey gave another shriek, and two of the other monkeys climbed out of the trees, made their way over, and stood before the man and this god monkey. "Now," said the man, "call the monkey that tried to knife me." To which the god monkey dutifully did as instructed, and the attendant monkey, who had been coming over with a knife, dropped it and also came forward. The man then had this attendant monkey go and gather more vines, and then had this attendant monkey also tie the two children monkeys to their father. And then once that was done, the man himself tied the attendant monkey to all of them. So having finished tying them all together, the man then explained, "Despite you attempting to kill and eat me, if you do as I say, I will spare you. And if you dare cause anyone else any sort of pain from this day forth, I will do everything in my power to see you disposed of." He then led these monkeys outside the shrine fence, tied them to a tree, and then, returning inside, he found the fire that the other humans had used to make food during the celebrations, and using that fire, he fashioned a makeshift torch, and he then went about and he set each of the shrine buildings he could find ablaze, one by one. Now, the village was a fair distance away from this shrine, and the villagers had no idea that any of this was going on. So when they noticed huge pillars of smoke rising from the direction of the shrine, they all began to freak out. However, there was a tradition that everyone in the village was expected to remain secluded in their homes for 3 days after the festival. And so, despite something clearly having gone wrong at the shrine, no one left to investigate. The man's host / his father-in-law was particularly concerned, as he was the one who had offered the sacrifice this year, and if something went wrong, he would probably end up on the hook for it. The man's wife was also astounded and wondered if her husband's asking for a sword earlier was somehow connected to this smoke everyone now saw spewing from the direction of the shrine. And so, together, this man's wife and this man's father-in-law, they sat in their house worrying about different things though. However, in time, the man arrived at the village, half naked, his hair undone, with 4 giant monkeys all tied together with vines, and being driven before him while he pointed a sword at them in one hand and carried a walking stick in the other. The villagers, while not leaving their homes, all came to their several gates and peeked out from wherever they could to get a glimpse of this sight and figure out what was going on. Those who saw it wondered to themselves what kind of a man could bind their gods and drive them before him like livestock. He must be something even more powerful than these gods, which meant that they had inadvertently offered up an even more powerful god as a sacrifice, and now they surmised this new god in the shape of a man had dealt thusly with their gods and was now coming back for vengeance and probably going to eat them all, because apparently that's what these villagers assumed that gods just did. And while they had been freaking out after seeing the smoke, they were now downright terrified. But the man ignored all the prying eyes and simply drove these monkeys on to his father-in-law's house, and when he arrived at the shut gate, he loudly proclaimed, "Open the gate!" However, no one answered it at all, not a single reaction. And so, the man continued, "Open up. I'm not here to cause any problems, but if you don't open up, I can't promise something bad won't happen." The message was received loud and clear, because the father-in-law very quietly gave the command to open the gates. But instead of commanding his servants to do it, he went to his daughter and he told her, "This man is mightier than the gods. But I know that he loves you, so please go out there and talk to him and make sure he doesn't bring his wrath down upon this house." The girl nodded, despite being understandably very scared. She was also simultaneously extremely happy. And so she went to the gate and opened it up just a crack to first get a look. And that's when the man realized that the gate was now unlocked. He grabbed the door and forced it open, revealing his wife. He then stepped in, smiled at her, and said, "Could you go get me some clothes, please?" She nodded and disappeared into the house, only to re-emerge a few moments later with a set of hunting robes, some hakama, and an eboshi hat. It was here that she now realized that the 4 monkeys were now tied very tightly to the gate. And after dressing himself, the man then asked for a bow and a quiver of arrows, which was promptly supplied. And then the man called for his father-in-law to come to the gate, who nervously obeyed. And here the man explained the situation to his father-in-law, giving him a little bit of a chastisement in the process. "For many years, you've called this thing a god and fed it human beings. What a terrible thing you've done. He's actually so weak that I've taken the liberty to name him Monkey Bob. And you could put him in a house and have him live as a pet, and yet for many years you didn't even think to challenge him and instead offered up human sacrifices. How utterly foolish. But so long as I'm here, you won't ever be at his mercy again. Look." And so saying, the man then pinched the god monkey's ear, who promptly sat down as if he were a trained dog. When the father-in-law realized that this man could command these monkeys as he saw fit, he told his son-in-law, "We had no idea, but you are deserving of being worshipped as a god. We will entrust ourselves to you. Please tell us your will, O mighty one." And then the father-in-law put his hands together in a gesture of reverence and supplication. And with this, the man replied with a slight grin, "Well, in that case, let us be off to the village head's house to tell him the news." And so, this man and his father-in-law, dragging the 4 monkeys with them, went to the village elder's home. And just like before, despite knocking on the gate, at first no one came to let them in. And so, just like last time, the man called out, "Open the gate. We have some things to discuss, but if you don't open, then I can't promise something bad won't happen." And of course, after being threatened, the village chief emerged from his house and, whilst trembling with fear, opened the gate, stood to the side, and immediately fell to the ground and prostrated himself before them. The main man, led the 4 monkeys inside the fence, turned to them, and said in a loud, angry voice, "For many years, you have falsely declared yourselves as God and feasted on the flesh of innocent human beings. Here's what you deserve." Thus saying, he grabbed his bow, knocked an arrow into it, and drew the string and aimed it at the monkeys, who all began screaming and pressing their hands together in pleading desperation. The village head paused, took all of this in, then gingerly got up off of the floor and made his way carefully over to the father-in-law and quietly told him under his breath, "This man, he's gonna kill us next for offering people up as sacrifices. Please help us." The father-in-law then reassured the chief, "Don't worry, as long as I'm here, I'll make sure no such thing happens to you." Which did relieve the chief, who probably could barely take in everything that was happening. As for the main man of this story, after having the monkeys freak out for a little bit, he lowered his bow and he told the monkeys, Fine. I won't take your lives. However, if I ever see you around these parts again, or if I hear even a whisper that you are causing problems for people, I will hunt you down and finish what I started." And then, taking his walking stick, the man gave these monkeys 20 good licks each. He then dragged them out into the middle of the village, called all of the villagers to him, explained everything that had happened, and sent them to the shrine to go take care of any remaining structures. Sent the villagers to the shrine, not the monkeys. The villagers then made their way to the shrine grounds, pulled down any remaining shrine buildings that they could find, and set them all ablaze. The man then released the 4 monkeys and drove them deep into the mountains, and they were never seen again. And so, the problem of the monkey god was solved. And after some time had passed, this man became the new village chief, served the people with all diligence, and spent his days living happily with his new, beautiful wife. It's said that he occasionally also made forays back into the unhidden parts of Japan. And up until this time, the village apparently had no other animals like cattle, horses, or dogs. The villagers claimed that having other animals, dogs in particular, would have brought down the wrath of the gods on them, and so they got by without animals. However, after the monkeys were driven away, the villagers managed to bring in all sorts of domesticated animals that all had their own babies, and soon the village began looking like any other. And now, when told that such a place exists on the outskirts of the province of Hida, the people of Shinano and Mino all say they've never been to such a place. And although the people of that hidden village sometimes enter our world, no one from our world has ever been to theirs. And thus it is said that this priest accidentally finding this hidden village, putting a stop to the practice of human sacrifice, and living out the rest of his days there was the result of some kind of incredible karma from a past life. Oh, okay. And that is the story. That is the conclusion to the hidden village and the terrifying monkey god that turns out not to be a god, just a really big and I guess really intelligent monkey that can understand human speech. And I have no further cultural commentary or anything else that I need to explain other than I find this story extremely interesting. It's a classic villagers having to sacrifice humans to appease a god, and then a hero coming in to save it all, and then peace returning to the village, and everybody gets to live happily ever after. Great story, right? But if you did enjoy this story, please don't forget to like the video, and please subscribe to the channel because there are more stories coming up. The next story actually, I would say, is probably the precursor to every kaiju battle movie that you could ever think of. This is the kaiju battles before kaiju battles were a thing. So please look forward to that, and please tell me what you thought of the story in the comments. If you felt like I didn't explain some things, or if there are some cultural aspects that you didn't fully understand, please let me know. I can't promise that I will answer everything, but I will do my best. And don't forget to share with all of your friends. Share with your weeb friends, share with your storytelling friends, share with your friends who have been saying that they don't have anything to do when they are folding laundry and they just need something to put on in the background. But with that, if you're still watching all the way up to here, I thank you sincerely. Ito katajike no koso haberi kere, and hopefully we will see you in the next video for the big kaiju battle. Although it's probably going to be a 2-parter, kind of like this one, except 2 instead of 3 parts, but it all involves kaiju battles, and it's a really cool story. It's one of my favorites, but look forward to that. And with all of that being said, we'll see you later, guys. Have a good one. Goodbye.